Hi, this is Joseph Arthur. Thanks for checking out Come to Where I'm From. Please support us on Patreon, patreon.com/come to where I'm from. We are an independent podcast, and any contributions you can make are greatly appreciated.
For real. Yeah, no, Ehud's genius. That's why this whole thing works.
He is good, although he's never been this professional for me.
No, I definitely know how to Gary V this motherfucker up. You know?
Have you ever met Gary?
No, but I've,
You've
I'm
seen any of his
into,
podcasts?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The funniest one is is him and Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
And it seems like Gary V on that interview is on Adderall or something.
Well, he's always feeling like he's on Adderall.
Yeah,
right?
maybe that's just his personality, but it's kind of hysterical. There's like they don't vibe or something. But anyway, I'm not dissing it because I like things like that. Inspirational people doing entrepreneurial.
Well, and he's trying to
put the mic up.
Not in my eye?
No, yeah, not in your right to your mouth.
Really? I saw Mike's went into the eyeball.
Get right on it. Wait, is Gary V the dude you told me about on the train that has the video crew on him 24/7?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like...
I didn't know about him until...
I've been on his episode a couple times.
Oh, you know him because he's a winemaker.
He's a wine dude.
Boom.
So when
I'm like, what?
So when I first met him, I was on a panel at Webster Hall talking about the internet, and he was doing the wine library. Uh-huh. And I wasn't a wine dude yet. I was just a lush, but I was not a wine dude.
Yeah.
And I thought he was the biggest jerk in the world.
He's got an off-putting thing to him.
And he knows that too. But
right, I probably like him.
Yeah, but at the time, and then he's changed a little bit. Like he was all in your face.
Yeah.
Now he recognizes that. He's also got an altruistic side now that he didn't have, 20 years ago.
Well, when somebody's doing like rah, 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 it's annoying. I'm aware that I'm also like, since I've become much more rah, 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 I know that's annoying. But like the alternative is to not be rah, rah, rah. I mean, you can balance the rah, rah, rahness. You know what I mean? But I know that has the potential of annoying, but I also understand it has the potential to inspire, and that seems more important than being cool, for instance. Like being cool is like you never are really rah, rah, rah. It's easier to be more sort of leaning towards nihilism is kind of cool, or it was. I don't think
when you are too cool, then you're nihilistic. Even further, you like it. Is this all sound check?
Yeah.
No, we're rolling.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I turn his mic up a little bit.
I'm trying.
All right. You want me to talk a little bit louder? Should I stand up?
We can crank
straight?
you up.
How's that?
You turn me up.
Oh, man, that sounds good.
Yeah, see?
Radio.
See?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I just heard myself on WNYC, and boy, did I sound like I had a radio voice.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, you sound good.
Yeah.
So you got the Gary V shoes.
I got the Gary V shoes. These are actually my second pair that I have bought on release.
Yeah.
And what he is a master at, besides selling all kinds of shit, is understanding that there's a secondary market, and because he was all about rummage sales, and he's Mr. eBay, like, garbage. So not that his shoes are garbage, but he knows if there's a limited edition, 500 pairs of shoes or 2,000 pairs of shoes, after release and they're sold out, the secondary market can especially with sneakers, can go 3, 4, 5 times. My son Zach did a sneaker convention here at City Winery called Supreme, and it was the Supreme brand,
Supreme, I know.
Which became now Zach thinks that's too not cool anymore because
it got
popular.
so cool.
Yeah.
But now I already didn't know it wasn't cool. But
no, it's not cool anymore. There's all these other things, Palace and the latest skateboard gear. But anyways, the secondary market with that shit is what's really, really valuable.
So what, you hold like 20 pairs back? Is that the vibe?
And it's sort of like Ticketmaster. It's a Ticketmaster when they scalp their own tickets, right? They
Right.
sell out, but they really have a couple thousand that they sell in their own secondary stuff
Yeah.
for a lot more and keep the VIG. It's pretty much the same thing.
Hassan Minaj did a full episode of Patriot Act on the resale market for Supreme.
Patriot Act?
It's his Netflix show. He did a full episode. Hassan Minaj.
I've never heard that name.
It's available on YouTube. Watch it. It's all
Okay.
about Supreme in the secondary market. It's bananas.
Wow. Man, I didn't know this was going to be
There's so much-
educational. I mean, I should have known.
There's so much going on with the Supreme, and it's just.
Well, we need to like start doing. By the way, support us on Patreon. But yeah, we need to start. What do you
Some
call it?
shirts,
Merchandising. This. I like the idea though that the shoes have positive words on them because I think words are powerful.
What does it say?
It says optimism and positivity.
Yeah.
And he's got a brand new.
It looks like he just did that with a marker.
doesn't it?
but
I knew you'd like them. I think I wore them for you. I wasn't sure.
I
this
do
morning,
like
but-
those. Gary V, good job.
Yeah, yeah. And the
All right.
inside.
Shout out Gary V.
Yeah, no, I like what Gary's got a new wine label called Empathy.
See, now that's
Yeah.
good too.
Yeah.
So he's tuned into the power of words.
I think he really does understand words.
manifesting.
And when you
Yeah.
on his vlog, you'll see like different screenshots of words.
Uh-huh.
And here I'm showing you the inside. So this
yeah, see,
this
that's
show says
genius.
positivity, and the other shoe has the inside says optimism.
See, that's great.
That's really smart. And then I put my orthotic right over it, so I cover up the positivity in the morning. So because I can't be too positive, I just gotta have a good
Yeah.
arch support.
Yeah. No, that's genius. I like that a lot. I've tattooed a bunch of words all over my body because that book, The Secret of The Hidden Secret of Water. Have you seen that book?
I've heard of it.
Heard of it?
Yeah.
Like where they semi-freeze water, and then like the crystals that have the bottles that say "I love you" are all beautiful and symmetrical, and the ones that say "Go fuck yourself" are like are like
Different
weird,
shaped?
just not even symmetrical. Which is interesting.
That
And
is
then
because I would think almost the opposite sometimes. The non-symmetrical things are the more artistic and interesting.
I mean, the ones that have positive words on them, like love and peace and I like you, and are just beautiful snowflakey looking things, and the other ones are just like So I was like, okay, we're made out of water, so let me just put a bunch of words all over me.
Yeah, but if I was to look at your artwork, I wouldn't see all that as like symmetrical snowflakes.
No.
I'd see them as different.
No, my artwork is I don't know, not. I think art though is like, a valve of negativity a lot sometimes, in a way, or some kind of release of sort of more nefarious energy or something. I don't know.
It's definitely a expression of some shit going on inside.
Yeah,
and
subconscious.
probably the more negative needing to come out versus the positive.
Yeah, like whereas music, I feel like is more positive.
Yeah.
For me, this is just for me. I mean, I'm sure it's
Do you
different
paint,
for
Michael?
different people.
So I'm a very, very successful artist. I've made 5 sculptures, and all 5 sold, and I've made 3 paintings, and I bought all 3. So I've pretty much, maybe it's like 8 paintings,
You
but
killed it.
yeah, I've really.
What sculpture stuff?
So I came back from Barcelona and Europe in '85, super inspired, and I lived with my now wife, girlfriend at the time, for a few months after 8 months of being away.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what I wanted to do. This was pre-Knitting Factory.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was thinking I was going to have a cafe. I was going to call the cafe Espressoism, because it was like this art combo thing. It was
That's
like
kind
a
of a-
coffee
that's
shop.
kind of a good name.
I liked it.
It's cheeky.
Yeah, it was over to the top.
It's a little bit, but
Yeah.
it works. It's on the right side of the line.
Like someone could make a chain with money around that.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
at the time, that was too commercial for me. I wanted to do something even weirder. But while I was still figuring it out and wanting to get laid in St. Louis with my girlfriend, and not come to New York yet, I was looking for some money, and I was building some rock gardens for some people in this neighborhood that we were living. And then I got inspired one day and I made some stick figure out of a 2x4, and it was just a man sitting there, but it was just out of 2x4s. It cost me about $4 of 3 2x4s and some nails. Painted it white and put it on the front lawn in St. Louis, and someone drove by. No, someone drove by and said, "Yo, that's cool. Is it for sale?"
Wow.
And I said, "Yeah." And they go, "How much?" I said, $10. And he bought it. So I was up $7. So I went and I did another one in a different position. Not a guy sitting, but this guy like this. I mean, it's just, really simple, super, very primitive. And I sold that one for $50, like 2 hours after I made it on the lawn. It was incredible.
Crazy, yeah.
So I did 3 more, actually. So I think it was 5 altogether. My mom bought the last one, and then I retired as a sculptor.
Why? You were killing it.
I had to move on. I moved on.
Who knew there was a market for wooden sculptures in St. Louis?
It was a hot summer. It was a very hot summer.
How did you? So then you came to New York,
Yeah.
and you like always considered yourself a New Yorker.
Yeah.
Said in your bio.
It's true. I mean, when I was 16 in Wisconsin, so like sophomore, junior year of high school, I just, always had a connection to New York, even though I maybe only came here once or twice to visit. I met a girl at Camp Interlochen in Wisconsin who was from New York, and besides the fact that she liked me, which was rare, I thought it was so cool that she was in New York, and I came out to visit and hung out in Greenwich Village with her, and immediately I was just like, this is it. That New York is where I want to be.
So love brought you here.
It was it was love, but it was also, I don't know, this weird connection to all the old Jews in New York and Lower East Side, and this connection to Europe. I've always had a pretty deep connection to Europe, and
What do you mean? How?
well, just I've always liked being there. Like, to me, there's a comfort level of being in Europe, even though there's problems and I don't speak most of the languages, and whenever I try to speak a language, it doesn't work. But I've always liked France. I've always loved Spain and Italy.
Me too,
And look I just went back to Poland with my family. Took my parents there, who are 84 and 81, and we went to the home of the Bengelsdorfs. The Bengelsdorfs being, my family before their name was changed to Ellis Island 4 generations ago. And actually, my brother and I both said, as we were eating some like smoked salmon and drinking vodka, late one night, like, what? Wow, this is where we came. We were here for a couple hundred years.
That sounds good. Smoked salmon and vodka.
Vodka. And I don't know, it was just something like we felt at home.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Interesting.
And that was Poland.
Yeah.
Anyways, so New York has always been the place I've felt is my true place I need to be.
Was it also the artistic mythology of the place? Like, were you thinking about that kind of stuff, like the poets or the musicians?
Yeah, no question. Yeah, the whole jazz club thing to me was a strong draw.
Kerouac?
Kerouac for sure. I've referenced him a lot, but I knew the name Allen Ginsberg back in college, and so that was something very compelling. I actually was listening to the Lounge Lizards back in Wisconsin, so like,
oh really?
And then saw John Lurie in the Jim Jarmusch film, and had that kind of that perception, that black and white film, and there was just something about New York just seemed super cool to me.
Interesting. John Lurie.
Yeah. Oh, he's a trip, man.
He is a trip. I'm curious about him.
Yeah, I want to see him. We became pretty close friends till he thought I was one of the bad people in his life.
Well, didn't he think a lot of people were the bad people?
Yeah, I just don't like ever being on that side with anybody. I really.
Yeah, who does?
Yeah.
Conflict.
I like to be liked, and he called me, he said in the LA Times when we had opened up Hollywood Knitting Factory, he goes, "You know what Dorf spelled backwards is? Fraud." and that was his quote. And I was like, oh God,
my
that's just like a knife to my heart.
Why? What? I mean, I know he like. What happened?
Well,
And when did the Knitting Factory Hollywood open? I didn't even know that.
Knitting Factory
I
Hollywood.
played the Knitting Factory Hollywood.
Really?
Is
Yeah.
it still open?
No, we
closed.
opened in '99.
Yeah.
And then it was done in 3 years later, 4
Yeah.
years later.
I played there, I think, once.
It was a really cool room.
It was good.
Yeah, right in West Hollywood.
Yeah.
John, we'd worked a lot together. You know, we'd probably did 50 shows of the Lounge Lizards at the Knitting Factory.
Yeah.
And then we produced a big show up at Town Hall celebrating 1 anniversary, and it didn't do well. And he thought that, you know, one, it was my fault, and then the little bit of crumbs that were left after our guarantee.
Oh, he thought
in
you
the
ripped him off monetarily.
Yeah, and I was like, we didn't sell those last 300 tickets, which was going to be our promoter profit and our split.
Right.
And he didn't believe that. But that was a pattern apparently with a lot of people that were involved with him. And
No, I've heard that.
he's a great artist though, and I really enjoyed his company. Like, you know, he was this tall, skinny dude, and you know, I'm the short guy, and he, you know, for whatever reason, women really were drawn to him, and so I liked hanging out in a bar with him, and he's funny. He's really funny and super talented, you know. And what he's doing with his artwork now too is really great. Have you seen some of his art?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
He's a great
amazing.
artist,
Yeah, he's really great.
Very good.
His
Yeah.
tweets are funny.
Oh, is he on Twitter? I'll follow
Yeah.
him. Yeah, well, you know, he might have been narcissistically abused down the line or something, and it set him off on some kind of thing. Who knows?
He also I think would pinpoint Lyme disease as a thing that really adjusted his sort of, you know, personality a little bit.
Right.
His brother Evan is a phenomenal piano player.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, one of the best.
Yeah. I like those movies too, though. Jim Jarmusch.
And he did this really fun series called Fishing with John.
Oh, right.
It was great, like with Tom Waits and all these people.
Early podcasting in
It was-
a way.
it was.
Even though it was televised right on Comedy Central or IFC.
Yeah,
or
something like that. But it was he was ahead of his time with the podcast idea.
Yeah, so what's he doing now?
He's living somewhere in the country making art.
And is he isolated, or is he
I think he's pretty secluded.
Huh. Yeah, it's wild being an artist and the different paths you can go, and how it, you know, how that the thing that makes somebody a genius also can, I don't know, isolate them.
Mm-hmm.
I think has the potential to.
And even if you're interacting with people and you're busy, you might also be very in your own world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I know of certain artists in New York City that are definitely interacting and leading bands and doing stuff, but you know, they're not sharing a lot. They're kind of in their own world because I think they're really deep down dealing with some heavy shit.
Right. Yeah.
That I was trying to be a little at the 30,000 foot view there without being specific.
Yeah, I know. I want you to get specific, but
I can only do that really with me, you know.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's do that then, because you then basically, I guess, when you moved here, then how long till you opened up the Knitting Factory?
Well, see, yeah, I mean, so the Knitting Factory was my attempt to be a little more artistic. City Winery, I'm definitely gravitating towards it being a business around art, you know, but the knit.
But it's super supportive to musicians.
We
Winery.
love art.
It's a business.
It's a business, but
it's supportive of. I mean, it's supported me for years. So gracias.
The good thing is that we love your art, and the public loves your art. So you know, but the decision making on it isn't purely personal. The way the knit was like, so the knit, it was just, it was one of those things where, you know, I turned down things that were commercial because I was trying to have this extra bit of integrity about what is downtown and art. Like you know,
there's no other place like that anymore. The Knitting Factory held a different space than.
Well, it's really hard in a world that's in Manhattan and Brooklyn, New York City, dominated by real estate and the realities. it's hard to have that balancing act. But at the time, the balance in the Lower East Side in the late '80s was, and I had no family and kids. I was like, screw it. I'm turning down, So like the Fish Boys brought me a cassette tape, and
The band Fish.
I turned it back to Trey and said, it sounds a little derivative of the Grateful Dead. It's not the kind of music we have at the Knitting Factory. We're a little more alternative.
Right.
Those were my words.
Wow.
And I mean, what a schmuck I am, for having.
Kind of right on.
But
yeah, maybe.
It's just like, no, but I was so headstrong. I did the same thing with Harry Connick Jr.
That's wild.
I didn't know who these cats were. I was
They
like,
all wanted to play at the Knitting
Harry
Factory.
Connick came to New York. He was doing well in New Orleans. He was not yet a movie star. He handed me a cassette tape and was like, I'd like to play, your place. And I said, get back to me in a week. And I listened to it, and I'm like, this is really inside New Orleans kind of jazz. Nah, we don't do that at the Knitting Factory. I got to make noise
That's funny.
and be really in your face.
Edgy.
Who else did
Edgy.
you turn down?
Well, those are the two big ones. I bet you I alienated other people that I don't know.
It's interesting, though, because time has a way of making people that seem, I don't know how to put this, because neither of those acts you mentioned are mediocre, but things that you might misinterpret as mediocre. I don't know. Time has a way of, I don't know, making art, like improving art, I find.
I think, you got to persevere for sure.
Yeah.
And then you find your thing. I mean, I have a very good friend, Dan Bodner. We grew up in Wisconsin together, and he moved to Amsterdam around the time. Well, he actually did the sweaters in the ceiling at the old Knitting Factory on Houston Street, and then he moved to Amsterdam. He painted a sitting man for 6 years. Like, all he did was these pictures of a guy sitting. Mm-hmm. And we're and he's struggling in Amsterdam like crazy. I mean, he struggled. He was truly like squatting. And I once went over and I bought him paint and some food so he could go another couple months. I mean, it was the classic story. And here's kind of a well-to-do family in Wisconsin, but the kid, he had so much integrity, and all he did was work on this silhouette, of a guy sitting. Mm-hmm. And he had a whole show in Amsterdam eventually of like 20 different guys sitting, and I was like, what the, wow. He's now become an incredible, he's like, it took a few years. The guy went from sitting to standing, like after a 6 day. And then
it's like a metaphor for his career.
And then it's blossomed, and now
running.
He's doing great. Well, now it's a whole bunch of people.
He's on a private jet.
Now it's a guy flying.
But his work's really cool. It took a long time, and it did evolve over time. But he found his voice somehow in that time. It took time.
Yeah, persistence. Like that's just a guru I follow on the internet. Always talks about will persistence. Like, just like being water, I guess. Like just never giving up. If you never give up, you'll get there in the end.
If somehow you figure out like who you like, what you are willing to pay the price to kind of get better at.
Yeah.
And, this is another Gary V witticism. He's like, man, I want to play basketball too, but no matter how many hours I practice basketball, and if I'm obsessed with it, as a 5'7" Jew, I'm just never gonna make the big leagues.
Right.
Even if I nailed my jump shot really, really good, I'm just gonna get blocked all the time. Like I just won't make it. So, and thank goodness I didn't have that completely wrong belief in myself that I was to be a basketball player. I wanted to be a business guy doing art, right? So, but you got to know what you want to do, and then you got to commit yourself to it. And I lived in the Knitting Factory office for a couple of years with a futon on it.
About that.
I mean, I was living it, right? You just got to live it.
How many years did you live there?
I was inside for 2 years. I
That sounds like prison.
It was great.
I was inside.
I was inside for 2 years. Now, in my incarceration, which wasn't, it didn't feel like I felt as free as you could be, right?
No, that sounds fun to me.
Yeah. No,
I like living in alternative spaces.
It was cool.
I've done it in fact, I just recently have a real apartment for the first time in, I don't know, 15 years. I've lived illegally in New York forever.
I mean, I remember your van. Your van. Oh my goodness.
But you know what's interesting about the knitting factory too? Like with checking out the notes. Like the first one was on 47
East
Houston, and then the next one was on 74 Leonard.
Oh, you saw those numbers, huh?
11.
Yeah.
Because 4 plus 7 is 11, and so it's double 11s.
Oh shit! I got to change my bank code.
Oh, really? Well, especially now that you just said that.
Yeah.
But that's wild, huh?
Yeah, I believe in a lot of those things. You know, we just signed our.
I gotta say, 155 Varick Street is also 11.
That's crazy.
It is, and then it's with a V, right? And so check this out: 74 Leonard Street.
Uh-huh.
Leonard Street terminates on what street?
On which side?
It ends on
Varick.
Varick.
Wow.
And Varick, there's only a couple of streets in New York that start with V. What corner are we on?
Varick and Van Dam.
Whoa! And then check this. So, and where are we moving to? Pier 57. How old am I right now?
57.
Whoa! Isn't that weird?
You're 57?
Yeah.
Wow, man.
I'm old. I've been.
You look good.
Oh, thank you. I've been, brushing my teeth and trying to work out.
Yeah. That's interesting. So I like the numerology thing too.
Yeah, I always fought it, especially in the Jewish faith. They can go really deep with numerology on everything, like to the point where it's like, oh.
It gets annoying sometimes. Like if I look at a clock and it says 11:12, I'm like, what did I do wrong?
Right.
Why didn't I see it at 11:11? You know what I mean?
Right.
I've turned it into a negative thing. Like if I see 3:34, I'm like, damn, I'm not on point.
Do you ever wake up and look at your digital clock and it's the same time every morning? A weird number?
Not necessarily.
I've had and this. I hope someone. Do you get callers ever or send you notes after this? Because I don't want to know what this means ever. But I've woken up 200 times out of the last 700 sleeps at 4:44.
Oh man!
And I look at the clock, and I'm like, oh shit, it's 4:40. So sometimes
great though. I always think that's a positive omen for sure.
All right. Well, you're half empty.
Yeah.
But
no. I mean, I looked that up. Google. I Google that 444. I know I've Googled 444
Yeah.
before. Yeah, it's good.
It really is glass half.
100%.
All right.
You're doing waking up at 4:44.
Yeah, like what do you,
I'm not
what's
waking up. I'm just looking at the clock,
clock,
and then I go to myself in my head. All right, it's 4:44. I'm gonna wait a minute, and then I look, and it's 4:45. So I knew it was 4:44, but I don't want to see the 4:44 again in the morning. So
Really?
yeah,
It's like that.
yeah.
And you haven't Googled 444 yet?
No, I'm kind of nervous. That's what I'm saying.
It's just going to tell you good things, like you're on the right track. I know it. It's like angel numbers and stuff like that.
All right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll Google it later.
So
Speaking of Google, there are co-tenants at Pier 57. Uh-huh.
what do you mean?
So at
second
Pier,
half of the
where we're
building.
moving, it's more than a half. So we're taking 32,000 square feet at Pier 57.
Uh-huh. Google's
taking 350,000 square feet. I bet you if you looked at the exact numbers, because it's not 350,000, it's probably 354,444 or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I was just looking at something like how everything equals 9. Have you ever investigated that? Like the power of 3, 6, and 9, like Nikola Tesla talked about the if everyone understood the importance of 3, 6, and 9, like they would like know the secrets of the universe, and just that's real interesting. 9.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't speak it off the top of my head.
I can't even comprehend it really.
But it's crazy. Like every time, I can't even speak it because but everything equals 9 after a while. I don't know how to explain it. It's crazy.
Speaking of numbers, when the original Ink Factory was around 86, when was it?
So I signed a lease in 86. We opened in February of 87.
So I kind of know what numbers it takes to, let's say, open Pier 57 now. Back in 86, what was your initial investment to actually open the knitting factory by yourself?
Well, I can tell you this. The rent in 1986 was $1,800 a month for that commercial space. We're spending $1,800 every 6 hours, something like that.
Damn.
On Pier 57. So that's definitely
But that's
different.
huge, right?
It's
Like Pier
huge, and
57.
and inflation and size and time. But
but other than the rent, what else did you put into it?
So I used to say in a lot of interviews, which maybe
Your
you're
bar
right,
mitzvah
I used
money?
my bar mitzvah
And
savings,
then
and I
Shlomo
opened.
said you also were a drug dealer. But he's trying to do a gotcha campaign.
Yeah, he's been wanting to take over since I hired.
Since we've since we've been sitting here, he walked in and stared at me for like 5 minutes behind you, and then he walked out. I mean,
No,
it's a problem.
It is. It's
Shout out to Shlomo.
Yeah, we all love Shlomo, but he definitely wants my job.
Oh my God, he's like.
I'm just glad I don't have his name.
But is that true? Gotcha.
But
But is that true though? Did you deal drugs? Just weed?
No.
What is Shlomo talking about?
Yeah. In college, I might have, experimented
Sold a
a little.
couple quarter bags.
But I sold everything I could get. When my parents sent me care packages,
Mm-hmm.
I sold them in the dorms. And one of the things I earned money, which sort of supplemented my bar mitzvah savings, was I had this food vending business that started. So kind of like Gary Vee in a little bit. There's this great alternative flea market between Milwaukee and Chicago where I grew up, called 7 Mile Fair. And when I was 13 years old, I sold my beer can collection for like $250. And these are cans, you find.
I know what a beer can collection is.
All right, but
I'm from that generation.
all right. So
you know,
all right. Did you have a beer can collection?
I mean, I don't know that I ever amassed one, but I had a couple of those like Fosters and KB. Like you'd see the big ones and it seemed collectible.
But you had the old cone tops and stuff. There
There's
was
some good ones.
Yeah, and there's some cool. And when you're 12 and 13, and
they're
it's still
amazing.
It's still illegal, at the time. Even though then you had to be 18 years old to have your drinking age. But anyway, so I sold it at this place called 7 Mile Fair, and then I convinced my dad, who was in the food distribution business, that I'd like to sell these cookies that came packaged 3 for $1 and sell them at this market. I'm like, they're selling everything there. They're selling, Bic pens cheap, and they're selling used this, and it's the coolest place. It's a whole economy. They're selling everything. So he said, sure. So he drove me and a friend in our station wagon, because we were now only like 14 and a half years old or something, to this market with 20 cases of perfectly, made, nice, beautiful packaged cookies. And we're trying to sell them at 3 for $1, the retail price. And we're sitting on a couple boxes, and about noon, we hadn't sold anything.
How much did you buy them for?
My deal with my dad was we were going to just split the whole thing 50-50. So
You got them for free? And
I got them on consignment from my dad.
Oh, your dad had. Oh,
My dad's in the business. I'm sure it cost him more, and the whole schlep and the table we rented.
But he was trying to teach you.
He's like, okay, my son's 14.
Spirit,
yeah,
right?
Different than my son Zach, who said to me one day when he was 7 years old, Dad, I want to do a rummage sale. And I was like, cool, that's great. Next morning, we're sleeping in the apartment on Vestry Street, another V, by the way.
Yeah.
And we hear rustling in the morning, Sunday morning about 9. And I go to Sarah, what's going on? And she's like, I'm so tired. I'm like, all right, me too. Hour later, I go into the living room and I say to Zachary's twin brother Eli, where's Zach? He's on the rummage sale. I'm like, what? And he's like, he's out front. So I go downstairs, and in the front of our apartment on Vestry Street is half of our living room for sale.
Really?
Yeah, I said it was okay to have a rummage sale. I didn't know he was going to put all my stuff out on the street and try and sell it. So
What did you say to him?
I said, dude, you can't sell that and this. This you can try and sell.
How old is he?
Well, now he's 20.
How old was he then?
They were 7 or 8 years old, something like that.
okay.
Really young.
Really young.
Really young.
So he didn't understand.
No, he didn't. But he did
okay.
have this DNA instinct to sell shit, right?
Yeah.
So
Where do you think that comes from?
it's from those Bengals Dorfs in Poland. I don't know. They had a schmata business, and they were tailors.
That. I like. I'm trying to develop. I'm developing it, but it's not innate in me, that kind of spirit. Which I'm curious about it.
There's some entrepreneurial DNA.
Yeah.
I wish I had more artistic DNA, but
Yeah, I wish we could I'll cut off a piece of the artistic DNA and take some more of that entrepreneurial.
No, I love that, but it's in there, and I can't help it. So, we were trying to sell these broken cookies. I'm so. Oh,
I didn't know they were broken.
No, they weren't. I spilled the beans
You
here.
gave
I gave the punch, and I just see. I'm not good on these vlogs.
I'll edit it out.
You're doing great.
So I said,
So they were broken.
No, they
cookies.
weren't broken yet. So they were pristine, unbroken cookies.
3 for $1.
3 for $1. Thank you very much. And at noon,
I'm already picturing
Thank
that.
you. Yeah, and that's what we were selling. We were
Yeah,
like
I
3
want
for
one.
$1, 3 for $1.
White round
Do you have any
ones,
now?
lower
We had a
ones.
whole bunch of them, like frosted and they were Ripping Goods and was the name of the company, and there's like 8 or 9 different packages, so you could mix or match 3 for $1. At noon, I put a dime in the phone, and I call my dad, 414-352-6671, and I go,
That's still his number.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Dad. And I'm like,
Our millions of listeners will
You
be
have to
calling.
beep that out.
and I put in a dime, and I'm like, I'm really sorry I didn't sell any, cookies. You think you could come around 3 to pick us up? It was unsuccessful. But Todd and I sat on a couple of cases, and those got crushed. What should we do with them? He goes, just, if you can sell them for less, that's fine. Just, I don't want to bring back to the warehouse broken cookies. And so I go back and I open up the boxes, and they're, and so I'm going 5 for $1, fresh broken cookies. They're the same as the 3 for $1, but they're 5 for $1. Get them while they're freshly broken. Mm-hmm. And people started coming over. And next thing you know, we broke all the rest of the cookies.
On purpose.
On purpose. My dad comes at 2:30 or 3 and goes, where's all, what? I thought I was schlepping all this back. And I go, Dad, we sold them all, And he goes, what? And I'm like, they broke. And so he got it. So the next weekend, he gave us only broken cookies to bring out there because he ran a warehouse, right? And they had all kinds of damaged goods,
Mm-hmm.
and it became like a 4-year business of selling broken cookies, dented tins, frozen olive oil that then and when I turned 16, I could drive one of those pickup trucks and the cube trucks, and I was bringing all kinds of stuff out. I eventually had my cousins and everybody working for me selling this stuff. So anyways, I doubled my bar mitzvah saving investment.
So it wasn't
and came
drugs, it was broken cookies.
It was mostly broken cookies.
So what was...
Shlomo.
So what's the moral of the story?
The moral of the story is I came to New York with
No, but let's
Couple bucks.
What's the moral of the broken cookie? The moral of the story there is people, if they think they're getting a deal...
Well, people, well, that's definitely a good, outcome of a lesson from it, right? If people think that it's, a special price, they're into it.
And you have to give them a reason as to why it's a special price that they can easily grasp.
There was a unique rationale, right? These were freshly broken,
Yeah.
right? They're the same thing. That was our spiel. It was it's the same cookie. We just broke it for you,
Right.
Right? You're gonna break it when it goes into your mouth. So I don't know. There was just something fresh marketing at the moment, and we sold we sold it. And then it turned into a thing where people realized that the quality was good. It just wasn't that perfect snowflake. It was the slightly off thing, and
Right.
they felt like it was a special, And then the word got out. At towards the end of my time doing this, I would show up to get the best spot at 7 Mile Fair. You had to be there like at 3 a.m. And when I was 18, I was partying until 3 a.m. And so we would drive there at the end of the night, park the car, sleep for a few hours, and at again towards the end of my time doing this, there'd be the customers. Our best customers would be knocking on the window, and they would unpack the truck for us and take and put in their own boxes what they wanted. And we'd wake up and there'd be a couple $100 of business
Sales already.
and that was our alarm clock.
That's
I was
interesting.
not getting up at 4:44 then.
That's cool though. How old were you then? 18?
I did that between like 16 and 19, and then when I started the knit at 23 and was really getting hungry to make some money.
Did you ever go to college?
Yeah, I did in between.
Did you
18
graduate?
to 22. I became a psychology and business double major.
Interesting. That's a good double major.
Yeah, and they didn't allow it at Wash U at the time. I had to be a different person in the liberal arts. I was Michael Ethan Dorf on that transcript, and in the business school, I was Michael Dorf. The business school did not allow you to have get a second degree. And I was like, come on, there's definitely a way to game the system, and I'm really bored in business school. My son Zach's got the same issues right now. He's like, they can't teach you entrepreneurship, right? They can't teach you how to sell, the shit that your parents send you as a care package like that. You can take finance classes and accounting classes.
It's an inspiration-based thing, I guess.
And I think there's a lot of creativity because
Definitely.
it's about marketing and being able to.
Like what we said about Gary Vee's shoes.
Yeah.
Thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, I think some of it is intuitive and hereditary, and then some of it, you want to dive in deeper. Like for me,
how much of it is fear-based, like fear of survival? It's like survival.
I think some of it, and some of it is survival, both for materialistic and the bills thing, and then there's survival of ego. There's no question the coming back with City Wine. Part of that for me was like, I want to build a great venue, and I don't want to be the guy who started the knit and left, and it never. It's got great memories in my mind and a lot of people's mind.
The Knitting Factory?
The Knitting Factory.
Legendary.
What was the overlap between knit closing and winery opening?
Wait a minute, though. I want
5
to
years.
go with Knit Factory
Yeah.
real
I
quick
do too.
first.
So anyway, I don't feel like I finished my work in terms of what I wanted to do with that. And ultimately I left, but I was being forced out by investors. It was a very challenging time. I raised, the Knitting Factory was 100% owned by me up until for the first 8 years. And then in 1995, 96, during the dot-com buildup, I had some interns. I actually had an intern, a guy named Jonathan Nelson, who helped us develop our first website. And then he went off to San Francisco and became our first intern turned billionaire on paper. And for a couple weeks, he did really well with the company he started called Organic. And there were then all these things during the 96, 97, 98, that businesses that were coming out of the music world that were going crazy with money valuation. And we were experimenting a lot with Apple Music. And it wasn't called Apple Music at the time. It was actually just Apple Macintosh. And we were webcasting. The Knitting Factory was one of the first places webcasting, in the world. We were doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, you think what you're doing here with we were doing this stuff in a very primitive way, getting it out there. And then our record label was actually growing, and we were putting out a lot of stuff. So I formed
Do you ever think about if you only knew where everything was going then, what you would have done to develop all that stuff even more? Because that's something I think about.
Do you?
Well, sometimes I regret it until I start forward momentum in this day and age now.
Yeah.
Like I had started a podcast years ago, and it was only 10 episodes, and then I like kind of didn't have the motivation to keep going, and then so for years I regretted like, oh man, I thought I was already past the podcast boom then. Had I only stuck with it, wow, where would I be now?
Yeah.
But then I realized then we start this podcast, and it's like, you know what? We're not even past the podcast boom yet. This is just starting. So let's keep this focused, you know.
Episode 19,
So,
Michael Dorf.
yeah, this is
Awesome.
episode 19.
Oh,
So
I'm proud to be on it.
Yeah, well, we're proud to have you. So that's interesting. So you were saying about like, so you had a billionaire intern,
And there was just all these
how
things
did he
going
become
on.
a billionaire?
Well, he took his company public, you know, and it was
What
just
company?
It was called Organic, and it was basically at the time a website building company.
okay. So it was like early website.
Early website.
So when the Knitting Factory first opened, you're 23, and you're thinking, I'm going to be like sort of a hip New York outsider venue, right?
Right.
Like,
That you know, I had two things going on. Like I always like to double major, right? So like I had
That's
this,
smart, I think.
This, and I guess City Winery with
City
a
Winery, yeah.
winery, and you know, like it's
Yeah.
nice to have the things, and if they can intertwine, even better. So I came to New York ultimately in the beginning I was managing a band called Swamp Thing, and I was running the record
what
company.
kind of band was that?
It was an alternative rock band.
Okay.
The posters I was putting up all over the East Village said, if you like the Talking Heads and Elvis Costello, you'll love Swamp Thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you know,
Not
they,
sure
they
about
were,
the name, but
you know, well, that was their name.
Yeah.
I was the wannabe fifth member because I've
Yeah.
never been able to play guitar or sing. Like I'm a terrible musician, which is
well,
why
if you keep saying that, the words have power. You'll always be that.
That's fine. I know my place on this one.
All right.
And my friends who were in the band were, you know, childhood friends and naturally gifted, great artists. And so, but I wanted to be in the band because they were so cool and they were getting laid, and you know, I wanted that. So
Is this Ed's band?
no, this is pre-Ed Greer. Yeah, which is hard. It's really like so historic. It's pre-Ed Greer, and you know, they were a band from
Who's Ed
Milwaukee.
Greer?
Ed Greer he was my like first real number one employee at the Knitting Factory, and was there the whole time. And then when in my wandering the desert from 2004 to 2008 before starting this, he too was out there as sort of freelance producer. And then when I opened up this place, he was my first hire. So he was always the guy who
It's like a right-hand man
right-hand
type
guy.
thing, like the first Shlomo.
Yeah, it's a he.
But
So
you met him, he played in a band.
he was in a band called Miracle Room that we ended up signing to the
like
Knitting
that
Factory.
name.
Yeah, Miracle Room's good. You would have loved
That's a
Miracle
good-
Room.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good
they're
name.
definitely more your musical style.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd like Swamp Thing too. They were really fun.
I'm sure.
And so anyways, I had a record label with them, and we put out about 6 or 7
And that was called
records.
Swamp Thing Records?
It's called Flaming Pie Records.
Oh, Flaming Pie. Okay.
Which the name all came from the band. I just got involved in it, and I became the money guy and ran it, and was running Nat from the back office at the Knitting Factory, and then putting on the shows and starting to be this, you know, this what was going to be Espressoism turned Knitting Factory as a coffee shop meets, you know, music venue.
So it was a coffee shop as well.
The only license we had to sell anything was coffee and muffins. You know, in
so
the
there was
beginning.
no booze at the first Knitting Factory?
For the first 3 months, I
Did you
didn't
sell muffins?
sold muffins. Yeah, and I sold again. And actually, my parents sent me more than just normal
The
college
cookies?
Did you sell packages.
broken cookies
They,
too?
no, they sent me. My dad would be, you know, fill up a couple cases of stuff and send it to me, and I'd sell it all. Oh, corn nuts. He would send me cases of corn nuts because the first marketing of the food we had at the Knitting Factory was a Wisconsin-esque type of cuisine. So we had cheese sandwiches and corn nuts for 2 months and
From
muffins
Wisconsin.
from Wisconsin. No, if you Google Knitting Factory 1997 and you read the caption in the New Yorker for about 18 months in a row, you know, they had the same little thing about us. It was like a Wisconsin-esque cafe. Kind of weird. Anyway, so within 2 months we were able to get our wine and beer license, And then New York City only allows one full liquor license at the same address in the city. And so below us was Estella's Cafe. It was a Peruvian restaurant. And I had to buy her out in order to get a hard liquor license a couple years after. And then the day we signed a deal with her, Zorn comes in and we set up Naked City, John Zorn. We set up to do the world premiere of a week of Naked City inside the restaurant space, which for John, he loved, like just taking over
improvisational jazz, like John Zorn.
Well, it wasn't improvisational. This is a great. I mean, Zorn, he's another one of these incredible geniuses, right?
Right.
And he was going to go on tour to Europe with a pretty extensive tour, and the band is Bill Frisell and Fred Frith and Wayne Horvitz and Joey Barron on drums. So an incredible band. And they were getting really popular on one release on Nonesuch. And he had written about 100 songs. So Zorn.
Yeah.
Now, Naked City's songs went from 30 seconds long to, maybe 10 minutes. So, but a lot of short, and the music was, Western country to jazz to rock, like hard, and he would have, some hardcore guest singers sometimes. I mean, all over the place, but it was start and stop, intense, not improv at all. It was highly, highly composed, intense music. And he'd written 100 songs, and every day he'd come in and he'd put out 20 songs of sheet music. And Bill Frisell, also a genius, could learn the songs. So they did rehearsals for about 3 hours. Then we played live, to the public coming into this place that we just took over their liquor license, to about 100 people and scattered seats. And John set up in the middle of the room, would do the 20 songs they learned. Next morning,
same thing.
20 new songs. So at the end of 5 days, 100 songs. Yeah. And these guys nailed it. They went on tour. And then John, from the stage, could then change his set list up throughout the European tour. But, I mean, that's the way John rolls. He did that with Masada then, his next band. And John must be up to 1,000 songs now. And he just, the artistry is so intense, but it's so much is composed. It's remarkable.
What do you think was inspiring you, or what drew you to that kind of music as opposed to like being Gonzo over Fish? And Harry Connick Jr.
Yeah, there was
like why did you like the sort of more outsider?
I don't know.
Challenging. Because that's unusual for somebody who's not a musician, I guess, and also somebody who's interested in having successful businesses. That doesn't seem like, at least right off the top, like a total congruent.
No, Joseph, you're getting to the challenges of certainly where my head was at, because they're diametrically opposed. Right?
They are a little bit opposed. Well, turns out they're not, but that's what's interesting. When you follow your instincts, even if they are peculiar instincts, that's a good thing to do.
True.
Even if it's like it seems like sort of conceptually like, not the safe thing to do. The safe thing is book Harry Connick Jr. and Fish. No offense to Harry Connick Jr. and Fish, by the way. I know they're getting...
and they're great.
Yeah, they're very much... They are great. Yeah.
But at the time, I was trying to be super alternative.
Yeah.
And was trying...
What year was this?
87, 88, 89. Like
so
those...
This is like, yeah.
But it wasn't mostly jazz at the Knitting Factory?
No, we had Sonic Youth. We did Beck's first performance.
Lou Reed was big on the Knitting
so
Factory.
Lou started to come when we opened up on Leonard Street.
Right.
But
how did that happen?
Hal Wilner, who really loved our eccentric stuff that we were doing downtown, was doing some production stuff with Lou, and I was Hal's buddy. When he was having his drug issues, I helped. Actually, I didn't help. I was the only guy who was giving him some cash at the end when people were trying to cut him off because he needed real help. And in the end,
you enabled him.
I enabled him, and I didn't know what was right. But when someone's looking at you in the eye like that, it was and someone who I respected and who seemed to be really together, I couldn't say no.
Right.
And and I wonder if I would now where you started this whole thing was like if I had the head where I am today, would I have had the maturity and would I still have the strength to say no to him, even though that's probably the right thing to do?
Was he like a mentor kind of to you? Or?
Hal, in a certain way, he was putting out those collaborative compilation records that were so out there, but they were getting so much critical acclaim, like the Disney, oddly enough, compilation where he would have Lou Reed and Laurie Anderson and real avant-garde players like take stuff out, but in the most professional, high level way.
Yeah.
In fact, the whole tribute series I do at Carnegie,
right.
he was doing before me.
Yeah.
But eccentric artists.
Right.
Like I went for pop around that, and he so
I did one with him for Doc Pomus.
Exactly.
Actually, Lou Reed was on that one too.
So Hal
I sang Viva Las Vegas.
Exactly, right? I mean, see, to me, that's...
Well, Hal holds a very special place in terms of his, relationship with culture in general. It's just so unique and so like, I don't know how to even put it into words, but it's important. It feels important.
He's got one of the most interesting outlooks, and to walk through an art museum or something with him would be phenomenal, right? Because the connections he would make.
Well, just being with him is like walking through an art museum.
Yeah.
Like his mind is an art museum.
Yeah. There's
where the Three Stooges hang out a lot.
it's that's a really good one. That's a perfect description. That's so him.
Shout out Hal.
Yeah, I love Hal.
So me too.
Hal, did us the biggest solid. He knew how much I revered Lou. And when we're talking about what represented New York to me, like.
Lou,
right? I mean,
almost to everybody,
right.
but
Lou, right?
Lou.
It was like, oh my God, like the Velvet Underground, and then the connection to.
It's
well, you want to know another? It was
unbelievable.
Andy Warhol.
Yeah.
And then the factory closed the same week the Knitting Factory opened.
That's crazy.
So
did you meet Andy?
No. But that was one of the things. Like to me, when we talk about that Kerouac jazzy thing of New York, to me, Lou Reed and Andy and all that was part of this thing that was like, whoa, I want to come to that.
Yeah.
So
and then Sonic Youth as well.
Sonic Youth was part of it, yeah.
Even though younger people, but yeah.
So when the chance to program, I was all over the place, and I really liked the jazz thing that was going on in Brooklyn, which was Cassandra Wilson and Greg Osby and Steve Coleman. They had this really cool scene going on. And then the old jazz cats like Cecil Taylor and Henry Threadgill.
Ornette
Coleman.
I got to meet him.
They weren't playing at the conservative jazz clubs, right? They weren't getting...
Oh, they weren't getting booked.
They weren't getting booked.
Like at Blue Note.
The Blue Note and the Vanguard even.
I saw Jimmy Scott with Lou at Blue Note.
But that was later.
Yeah,
that was
later,
probably like 2000. Yeah. But in '89, they weren't programming anything that was even remotely avant-garde jazz. So I started to get very involved in the jazz scene because I was able to be the left of center jazz dude, and then you had Uptown going, in all the clubs doing the right of center, and it was a great place to be. And then
because you had your lane.
And it was a wide open lane, and
nobody else was really there.
And Hal was defining that in a certain way because it was almost anything goes, right? You could have country music on the same stage as punk, and there's a weight that Bill Graham kind of put it together. Anything goes. So I love that.
That lane is wide open right now, I would think.
Well,
is anybody doing it now?
Well,
if somebody opened up Knitting Factory now,
I think now, and I'd like to think that City Winery is kind of...
City Winery is, though, it feels more mainstream, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I feel like I fit into the City Winery, so I'm not disparaging people that fit into the City Winery.
Right. I just think it's Knitting Factory for a little older
Right.
audience.
Yeah, but
And
like we're talking that super left of center thing.
It just sounds chaotic what you had back then in a good way.
it was that, but you know what? That's for whatever reason what my mind in my head, and then I think my friends, and then the expanded circles around them, and then their circles wanted, like a place where you'd stand, and it was okay to be crammed in there, and it was okay to maybe have your mind a little more altered and shaken up and stirred.
What do you mean
and,
altered?
Well, and it could be in any way you want to alter
Right,
it. It could be
yeah.
just knocking your head against the wall.
Yeah.
But you were open to almost anything goes, and
Yeah.
later hours, and maybe a little less sense of responsibility to get up and whatever. I don't know, but that it seemed perfectly suitable for me in the 80s. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
And today,
What was your capacity at the Leonard Street location?
well, legal capacity was less than we had there.
Well, there was a couple rooms there. There
Yeah.
was a basement down there, and then
Like,
there was the main room,
when,
right? There
When
was-
Lou played, that's what I'm
So
getting
Lou-
at. Like,
Yeah.
what room would he play?
So,
The
well,
main
Lou
room.
played the big room on Leonard Street,
On
right?
Leonard Street,
and
yeah.
and that we had a capacity of 199 legally.
It's tiny.
Really?
And he
yeah.
was still Lou back then.
Oh, he was.
So it was
He was
packed.
Lou. It was when we would do runs. We'd do 3-night runs and be packed, and those were the most crowded we get. The fire department came the first time we did Lou.
Yeah.
The fire department showed up, and
Oh, it's Lou. It's fine.
no, actually, he goes, this pretty much, but the chief comes in and goes, who's that on saxophone? And I go, that's David Sanborn. And he goes, just a second.
Damn.
And he literally
And
goes,
he Googled it?
No,
There was no
Google.
then.
No,
I
but he
know,
went.
I know.
No, he went on the walkie-talkie to the truck outside and said, "Sanborn's on saxophone." And he goes to me, "You're going to need to make room for 8 people, so we're going to need to get 10 people out." And what we had is these doors that led from the main room into the front bar. I don't know if you remember Leonard Street on the ground floor. So we opened those doors and we let people filter out, and then 8 firemen came in full regalia and
To
the oxygen
listen?
to listen. They stayed for the show.
That's incredible.
They kept us safe.
That,
But
Yeah.
It's just totally unrelated.
I love
when,
New York.
When Metallica played the Bowery Ballroom, the fire department, the police, they all showed up to inspect the room and stayed for the show.
yeah. Well, first of all, it's a little safer.
Yeah.
And they have these rules in New York where you can go without an occupancy permit as long as you get certified fire guards, and there actually is something behind all that. But there are also humans who love great art too.
Yeah.
You just don't always look at them that way.
Speaking of Metallica and Lou Reed,
Right, again.
like, what did you think of that last? Did you hear the last
Yeah.
album? What'd you think?
Well, so anything Lou does, I'm going to give respect. And when he made his noise
100%,
record, I'm not the biggest Metallica fan.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm listening to at home, and I probably won't do a Metallica tribute at Carnegie Hall.
You should.
And maybe I should. And I wish.
I would definitely. I would want to play that.
See, I wish I could think more out of the box and like that now. I'm doing, like the Joni Mitchell's,
Slayer's
right?
on their
Like,
last tour. Do a Slayer one.
I know, but anyways, I thought it was really cool and
Yeah.
totally out of the box.
And totally underrated, like 100%. It's a shame that was the last record. I mean, a shame that was the last record he put out because of the reception that it got, which was over the top harsh.
Yeah.
So he went out on an over the top harsh reception, and I know he thought that record was great. Like, he said that to me, that it was one of the best things he's ever made. And when I listened to it, it's like lyrically, it's just, again, it's like gonna become totally reinterpreted,
Down the
10
line,
years
Right.
later. Like, lyrically, it's just like unbelievably great and challenging and fucked up in the most like Lou like amazing way, Like,
But I don't think the negative press criticism bothered him.
I bet it did. I mean, every artist is like, no matter how cool and big bad wolfy artists can be, we, every artist wants people to say, "For you're a jolly good fellow."
Yeah.
Like.
But I think
it's basic.
I think he was at a point where, I don't know, not that he was immune to harsh,
that was a
criticism,
pretty harsh reception.
but I think he knew it was really good, and
Yeah.
I think he had a longer view on shit.
That's true.
And I think he was all right.
Did you get on with him?
Yeah, we had a great relationship. We had this unique. Sarah thought that he had a crush on me for a little bit, and it wasn't that. It was we had a unique relationship because we started to become close. We drank wine together when we were doing the shows. After the shows, we went to Montrachet a couple times with the band, and we connected around this one particular vineyard in the Willamette Valley. And Lori and I were friends before that, so there was always this connection with both of them. But we got along talking about Judaism, and he wasn't a religious guy, but he knew he was Jewish, and his parents for sure. But like there was something unresolved in his like Buddhist kind of spiritual self that he was always still intrigued with, and so he would ask questions. He came to 4 or 5 of our Passover Seders.
Like what kind of questions?
They weren't like, Rabbi Dorf, could you tell me about this or that? It was more like, why are all these people still attending this feast of freedom around the story of slavery 3,000 years later at the Museum of Jewish Heritage, and isn't it weird how this scene in New York, and he had a connection with John Zorn on this too, and a few other musicians, where it was like, what is it about the Jewish people that makes you remember and explore and be willing to question status quo, whatever those. I think they were like who he was. I mean, it was maybe less religious and more about, I know I come from this, and so what is it about this DNA pattern that has made me who I am?
And what would you say?
I don't have an answer to that. I mean, I certainly think there's a history of study and learning and family. But I think those are very universal things now. Like I certainly think in 1720, there was maybe some value to keeping kosher, for example, because it was health related and a way to pass certain things on. I don't know how much of that is translatable to today or as relevant. I think we've adopted a lot of great things of other face. I think there's been a lot more melting. I think the melting pot can be really good. Like, thank goodness us in Western civilization learned a lot about cleanliness from the Japanese culture. Otherwise we wouldn't be doing hot tubs and smelling as good.
Yeah, I was reading this book, The Renegade History of the U.S. You ever read that?
Mm-mm.
It's so interesting because it's just like, man, this place has been a madhouse the whole time. Like when, just like people used to just get wasted all the time and prostitution all over the place and everything. Like it was mental, like with the founding fathers. Like you just don't think of it like that.
Yeah.
You think of it like as more conservative. It was mental. So I think like it's interesting when people panic now, like, oh my God, we've never been here before. And it's like, man, relax. This has been a madhouse for quite a long time.
Well, imagine only 70 years ago, when did Prohibition take place? I think that's like 80 years, or it's going to have its 100th. Yeah, it's 100. It's going to be 100 years next year.
Yeah.
Prohibition. Wow, we were so out of control in this country that they had to create these laws that you couldn't drink alcohol.
I know, it's like, like in this book, it talks about the fact that it was like everybody was drinking like at least like 7 whiskeys a day type of thing. Like it was like nuts.
Yeah.
Like that was common.
I mean, that's mind-boggling to me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you so what happened? So you lose the knitting factory because of what?
So I diluted myself out. So we became
You sold shares. Or something,
we became Knit Media, right? So I was 100% owner, and then I started taking on investment because I saw again my peers were starting to do really, really
make
well,
billions, and you were like,
and going, well, I'm doing interesting stuff. I'll figure out a way to like push it, and so I did 4 rounds of investment. The last couple of rounds were classic vulture capital. Some people call it venture capital, but the vulture capitalists come in and they see a hungry guy and naive and figure out terms that basically can control the company. So on paper, I thought I was doing okay,
good
but
did you not have a lawyer back then?
I had a lawyer, but you don't always listen to your lawyer when you're young.
And sometimes lawyers give you bad advice.
Yeah.
It depends on if you have the right lawyer.
This one I would blame me, not the lawyer.
Okay, so you got kind of like it got bought out from under you, sort of.
Well, also,
it became no fun anymore because you didn't control it.
I also don't think I was looking at everything correctly. Like I don't think I was respecting the music. I'm happy of what happened. Like I was calling music content for about 2 or 3 years. Like it was content.
Content for who?
For the public. It wasn't supporting musicians to create art to get to the fans. Mm-hmm. I knew it in the beginning, but I lost my way, I would say.
That's interesting.
And I feel like I'm back.
Calling it content is negative because everything is referred to as content now. I think like this, what we're making here is referred to as content, which I think is probably like an alarm bell that you're kind of aware that calling something content is in a way devaluing.
I don't know if it's devalue. It's just it becomes this asset and a widget, and art and what we do in the human interaction is not, right? So if all of a sudden you're just cranking the stuff out and you get to episode 275, or I think Gary V's on episode 490, and if you forget what you're doing and it's just I'm cranking the stuff, I got 5 shows I got to crank out today for deadline because
that's how he is about it.
Well,
because I have the deadlines and I have to edit these things. But when we do it, it's all about the now.
Well, it's being here now.
I'm only teasing.
Yeah, no, I know, but I am. It's like
he is the pragmatic one.
Well, you need the pragmatism, but also it's about making sure you're remembering what you're doing why you're doing it. Right? Yeah.
Well, Joe always tells me don't operate out of fear, out of like, okay, I know I need this, and that's gonna affect how I'm gonna do things.
If you operate out of fear, it's always a mistake.
Yeah.
Or you always end up creating what you're afraid of. Or
I can see that. I mean, again, I think there's a fear of failure in general, and so that was partly a motivator of
that can be good.
Yeah.
The fear of failure, it gets you out of bed. Let me do that run. Let me, but like a little of that, I think is okay. Obviously, like but in balance.
Would you consider the Knitting Factory experience a failure in the end?
Oh no, absolutely not. No.
It's legendary.
But I
and it led to this.
Right. I relish every moment of it. I made mistakes, and again, even this whole thing where I know I went overboard with what we were doing in media. I mean, we had a TV series on BET. We had 340 records out on the Knitting Factory label and publishing with 100 artists, so thousands of songs that were, we were doing, and then all the stuff we were experimenting on the internet, which was really cool stuff. But I went overboard with that for a bit. And when I started this place, I actually made a really, really conscious decision. I mean, one, I let Ehud, let seller sessions happen, and
that's amazing.
Right,
the seller sessions.
It's really cool.
That's fucking amazing, and that's an archive.
And they gave me freedom, full freedom. Yeah. There was no limitation.
But I didn't want to own IP. So the most important thing when coming into, except for
own IP.
I didn't want to own other or share, be in business where I'm like owning other people's intellectual property rights.
Okay, intellectual property.
Yeah,
right. Okay.
I really wanted to be able to see you and I can give you a bear hug, or you give me a bear, or we both give. Usually, you're giving me up because you're bigger than me,
And don't you forget.
and I will not forget that. But like, and I know that it's like it's. I hope it's real. It's not superficial, and we've broken bread. And like my relationship with artists right now is I love that. Like to me that there's nothing more valuable. Frankly, I'm glad. I wouldn't trade more success at the expense of having a worse relationship with the talent. I love seeing the artists and knowing that they're not looking at me going, am I owed some money on that third record
That's
I put
so
out?
interesting because it is like as an artist, everybody who plays here knows this is true too. That it's like you get taken care of, you get fed like a nice meal, like at those times when you're not on the wagon, you can have as much wine as you want. I mean, it's a great thing, and it's unusual to be treated that well. I mean, there's other places that treat artists well, but this place is definitely a bread and butter maker for a lot of mid-level to upper level to like even lower level artists, like, so it's like
that was the role I wanted to be. I wanted to be a home,
and I wonder like
home.
how much that John Lurie like quip, that negative blast, how much that actually in the end, those negative jolts I find can be super inspiring and super like to the fact that you've converted that, whether that had anything to do with it or not, into literally like thousands of artists would probably say this is a great thing, and I feel completely taken care of.
So
what's the relationship there?
You've nailed it. No, I think, and part of what I try and articulate in my new book coming out.
Okay, let's promote the book.
is just that, like the lessons I got from the scene around the knit, and again my overdose I think on trying to be a content creator and forgetting that we're all about the artistry, and we're the medium between the fan and their favorite musician, and our role is to create as great a place as possible, right? So when we want to go overboard to put out food and booze and whatever it is and have a party around the arts, we know that hopefully that's enhancing the artist's vibe that night, and in turn, if we're doing the same thing to the consumer and giving them good service and hopefully fair pricing and quality food and serving wine in a glass and a seat not standing and the air conditioning's working and everything's working, then that interplay between the artist and the fan is even better. And then if it's all working really great, we're creating this magic, right? And that's my job. My job is to create that magic, and that can't be replicated in any video format, any media. Like you can show it, but it's not the same as being there. And so I said, fuck it, I'm just going to go all in on the momentary thing, and the idea of capturing that in some form of medium. I'm going to let other people do that. Yeah,
that's cool. Well, that's also interesting too, because it's like again, on the surface, not necessarily the smartest, like just surface level business plan. Like, save money, give the band the shitty menu, like like
only 2 beers,
2 beer minimum, that kind of thing. Like, but just when it creates an environment of stinginess then, and then like it just bleeds into everything.
The whole thing, like even a bouncer in the front or whatever it is, like your reaction. The service fees on tickets. I mean, why did we go nuts on like creating our own ticketing, software? We're not a technology company, but we didn't want to have those ticket fees of all the big companies. And that's the first interaction. They love Joseph Arthur, and then it's like, it's $18 ticket, that's fair, but $9 service fee, and then all of a sudden there's hostility. Like, you haven't even talked to them. I haven't even done my job, and Ticketmaster, whoever it might be, is already creating this hostile relationship. Like, I wanted to try and remove as much of that as possible.
Is that going to continue in the new location?
Absolutely. We're going to keep, pushing. And trust me, I've got an offer on the table for a lot of money to, like, take over our ticketing. We're doing 500,000 tickets a year right now between all our locations. And how
many locations are there now?
Well, believe it or not, we're in 7 cities, but we have 11 locations because we just are opening tomorrow morning, Rockefeller Center, an outdoor like city vineyard type of thing.
I saw a tweet or an Instagram was like, why is City Winery up here? We can't tell you, but we will later.
Yes, I don't know. That wasn't my tweet, but we're trying to be clever about spreading.
No, I didn't mean to make fun. That wasn't making fun, but just like, is that what it is?
Yeah, we got a couple of those. We've got
like little like sort of pop-up venues.
Yeah, there's some pop-ups where we can sell more wine. We're going to do a music lounge with J&R Music downtown at Park Row.
That's cool.
Which is kind of cool. Beautiful. J&R Music stopped selling as a company a few years ago, but over the 40-something years that they were in New York as sort of the premier computer / stereo / record store, they accumulated all the real estate on that block of Park Row between Broadway and Beekman. And so they're developing all the buildings and probably making 100 times more money than they've ever made, as real estate. But they wanted to preserve J&R Music and the legacy of what went on there. So we're creating a small lounge, about 150 capacity room. Should open in November, and it'll be J&R Music Lounge by City Winery, the first kind of ever something like that. So we're doing that now too, and we're doing this upstate project. I think I might have mentioned
City Winery upstate.
City Winery Hudson Valley.
That's great.
Yeah, I found a knitting factory.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, we bought a 22-acre, 150-year-old knitting factory. Remarkable. Legit. It's got all the spinning yarn things, and when we bought it about a year ago, we've been working on. We took almost a whole year just to get the zoning changed so we could turn it into a winery and then an event space. And there's a cool outdoor amphitheater we're putting in. It's going to be really cool when we launch it this fall.
Yeah.
But that's where we're moving all our wine making operations right now, since we're out of this building in 2 weeks.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. By the time this airs, there will be no more City Winery on Varick Street.
On Varick Street.
Yeah.
We're going to be spread out.
Can you go into details? There's a lot of speculations and stories as to why you ended up moving out of here early and everything that went down with Disney, to set the record straight.
Sure. We'll make this program where we set the record straight. But hopefully Supreme Court of New York will set it straight. But
yeah, because you just built this room we're in right
where
now.
We are,
this is the loft we're in right now.
Right, which is a really cool
it's a beautiful room. I would love to play here. I never have.
Well, we're building a new loft in a new location too. So, one of the things, the great news of us moving, and I'll get to the meat in a second of your question, but
are you bummed? Were you bummed about it? Well, at first probably, but
no, I really not. Since we've built all these other city wineries now,
you just knew you could do it.
We knew we could. There's so many improvements to everything we did after New York, including having a room like this in a bunch of our other markets, and having a kitchen and closer to where people are eating, and a front door when you don't walk into a show and disturb it, right? Like you walk into more of a lobby. So all of our other locations are much, much smarter design. And so I've been excited to move and really take that 10 years of experience and move it into a new location for sure. So that part I'm not crying at all about. I am pissed off at Trinity Church because they screwed us on this space that we're in right now. So we've been in.
Careful.
Yeah,
that's Jesus, people.
No, man, that's okay. And I'll
He's a Jew.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. Man.
There's only a few.
This battle is 3,000 years old.
We've been going at this for a while, but so I've had a good relationship with Trinity Church from the time we signed our lease. And when we signed the lease 11 years ago, there was a demolition clause in there that said in any time 1 year advance notice, they can tell us with certain other buildings coming down next to us, but that they can demo the block. And in exchange for having that demolition clause in, we had a fair market value on the property, and
Does that mean after 2 years they could have given you a year notice and it would have been done?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So 10 years went by, no demolition clause, good relationship with church. We actually made sacramental wine 6 years ago with the rector, and that was
A lot
cool.
of good that did you.
Yeah. And we had a good relationship. Then about a year and a half ago, my buddy says, hey, do you want the second floor? It's becoming available. We'll do a 5-year lease extension to downstairs and give you the upstairs. And I'm like, well, what about the demolition clause? He goes, it's the same thing. I mean, the likelihood is very low that we're going to demo. But at a minimum, we'll give you 3 years, orally. But the template, the contract, all our leases throughout all the Hudson Square properties, all their buildings have a 1-year demolition clause. Yeah. It's just standard protocol. It's part of the lease. And I'm like, all right, so you're saying 3 years. And then I'm doing calculations and go, well, it's going to take us about $2 million.
But real quick, 1-year demolition clause, that means that if that means they give you 1 year warning.
1 year notice, and then they're going to demolition the building.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
So
I know you already said that, but I just
but no, let's be clear.
that.
It's 1 year notice.
Okay.
And so, buyer beware, right?
Right.
So we sign a new 5-year lease.
That's heady, man. When especially okay, you just said okay, yeah, we've done this all over the country. We know how to do this. This is cool. But for a young upstart, that's just a heady thing. It's already so risky opening up a business of any sort.
And then to have this.
And then to have that also hanging over. That's
Well, the good news is we just signed this 25-year lease at the pier, and there's no demolition clause. So, that's good. But this went into it, had a clause. But here's a guy who I've formed a relationship with for 10 years. Mm-hmm. He's from the church, right? Mm-hmm. And when you talk to a guy from the church, usually you would think they're going to be honest, right? And a mensch and above board.
He already knew about the Disney thing?
And they must have known. And,
that's fucked up.
Yeah, and so they signed a new 5-year deal. And in the lease terms, it said there's a 1-year demo, but the first $2 million that was going to come in terms of a payment for rent, we get to keep to cover the cost of our renovation. And we have emails that go, it's going to take us 3 years to get those couple $1 million back. So we have in writing my saying it's going to take us 3 years minimally. And it says, hey, John, we need 3 years. Are we going to for sure have 3 years? And he's like, yeah, you're going to for sure have 3 years. No problem. You probably have all 5 years, just like you had all 10, but but don't worry about the demo clause. Boom, we start construction.
This barely was built before that
announced.
Word
boom,
already got out. Because I remember Shlomo brought me up here to see it. It still smelled like new construction. The next thing I know,
boom, we're out of here.
Disney's buying
how far
this place.
into construction did they tell you?
So we ended up we've probably had an operating year instead of 3. Mm-hmm. So, we're probably like $1.8 million or whatever in the hole on the second floor. Disney is not the bad guy here at all. Disney, got a 99-year lease from Trinity Church. Trinity Church didn't say, hey, we screwed over this one tenant, by the way. And, they just said, you're getting all of these buildings, this entire square city block for 99 years. Thank you. $650 million for it.
Damn. And what's Disney going to do with this?
So this is going to become the new East Coast headquarters, and all those the ABC Studios and ESPN and all of those things will be taking place here.
Wow.
Yeah.
But were you not originally supposed to get till January 1st, 2020?
So the original conversations with Trinity when they initially broke the news was, listen, you're going to get the demo clause soon, and we're going to get you to January, which was really about 18 months from the time they said that. And so, start looking fast, and 18 months, we're probably going to hit the 18 months from the time they mentioned it. I looked at 100 places right away, really went all over looking and feel very blessed to have found a spot that we are. It's a lot of money, but it's a great spot. But we could have used the extra time.
Are you going to get are you guys, is there a legal battle or anything about it?
Yeah, so, again, Disney did actually the right thing, right? They for sure need to build this project here. And we're the only tenant that had this particular issue with Trinity Church. So they said, listen, we don't want you to get involved, in a protracted
Lawsuit.
problem because we need you out of here.
Out.
If you sign a document with us that says for sure you're going to be done on August 1st, 2019,
couple
we're going to
million.
give you some money.
Right.
And
that's nice.
so that was very.
It's nothing for them.
But-
that's but it's, yeah.
It was the right. They needed to
It's the
do
right
it.
thing
They
to
didn't
do.
because if we were a holdover tenant, even
Yeah.
for 3 or 4 months,
That
to
messes them
slow up. This is going to be a $2 billion
Yeah.
building. Right? That would be bad. So Trinity gave us a couple shekels, but it certainly doesn't make up for what we need. And I've got 5 months of payroll with a lot of people that
Right.
need work. So it's not just a loss
So
now.
it's all
this.
kind of good
It's
in
all-
a way.
I'm trying to look at this one very much as a half glass full.
Seems like a good thing. Is
Yeah.
the new space is going to be better?
It's going to be so cool. It's
Right
a great
on.
space. Not a single column in anyone's view.
There you go. So tell me about your book.
So the book is an attempt to synthesize some of the lessons and mistakes and many mistakes of
What's it called?
it's called Indulge Your Senses, Scaling Intimacy in a Digital World. And basically where I was going before was...
This is like, that's the theme of this podcast. Like, because you like the digital world was like sort of your dark side with the knit in a way.
Yeah.
And then scaling back to intimacy has been your saving grace.
That is the premise, and that's, if you will, my thesis from a business operating standpoint is
Yeah.
if
And
I'm going to be a good music
a good
venue,
thesis for life, I think too. I think like authenticity and like become
I
Sorry
think
to cut you off.
no, but I think authenticity is an important word here. It gets
Yeah.
overused a little bit, but like if we're going to try and
That's my forte, overusing words.
You haven't brought up Oponopono yet.
Oh yeah. Oh shit.
90
Okay.
minutes in, no
I
Oponopono.
know what the fuck.
Sorry, Michael.
that's all right.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah,
if we're going to do our job right, again,
Yeah.
being the medium in between an artist and their fan, we need to deal with all of these elements and that creates that intimate connection. And then if I'm going to build on the business and grow this thing to 20, 30, 40, 50 locations, the biggest challenge for me trying to create scale is to keep the authenticity, to keep the intimacy together.
Yeah.
And that's a big challenge when you grow a business. I mean, at 1,500 employees today, how do you make that connection for every single staff member to understand it? And then when we get to 3,000 or 4,000, how do I make sure that every experience for the customer is going to be as good as the ones we've been having so far?
Why don't you think it's enough for you to just like have like one venue? Why the motivation to expand all across the country and then maybe even into
And
Europe?
you did have, not to bring up, but you did have some failures along the way, like City Winery Napa.
Napa was a
that
failure.
closed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll go there, but let me answer the deeper question, the harder question, like, why? My mom asked me that a lot.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I
maybe
think
yeah.
by the way, it's no judgment. I think it's,
Yeah.
of course, it's just natural human instinct to want to expand and.
It's not like, I could have not taken investors on, and although it would have been harder on the capital raise, but had I just said, here's the thing I want to do, and made a whatever comfortable kind of living.
Right.
There's something more than there's something about the idea of growth and actually doing and bringing the thesis to more people.
Right. I think the success is coming from the fact that at the core, you're aiming to serve people.
Want to serve
music.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is what brings success. If you have purpose-driven motivation, like Dr. Joe Dispenza says, that's the most powerful form of motivation.
I think he's absolutely right. Like,
when purpose-driven.
For me, one of the highest compliments that I can get from an artist is when you say, or Mark Hone or whoever it is, and says, "Hey, when are you going to open up in Cincinnati? When can you open up a City Winery in Denver? I need one there." I love that. And then then the thought for me is, boy, if we had 70 of them. And we had this purpose of serving all these people simultaneously.
Yeah.
magical shows and good food and great wine.
Right.
How cool is that? So I'm just
That's very
driven by
cool.
seeing this thing keep growing.
Mm-hmm.
But how hard is it for you? You're your title is CEO and founder. What's your
Founder and CEO.
Founder and CEO. So you oversee them all in a way, and you're in charge of
Well, I
them
mean,
all.
let's be honest, Shlomo does.
Well, but how after what point do you feel like, okay, it's too big and I'm losing control, or does that never happen?
Well, it happens. I worry and think about that all day, and a lot of my, brain cell focus is about our management team. Shlomo's in charge of booking, and he's been doing a great job.
Yeah.
But booking is one of like 8. He's one of 8 key components of what I manage every day.
Mm-hmm.
So we have our whole winery operation run by also an artistic Frenchman who's got his
David
thing,
Lecomte.
David Lecomte. And now I have a chief operating officer who's really dealing with all the mechanical parts of keeping these things truly running efficiently.
That's
and
interesting.
HR has become this thing, right? Like we're in the Me Too movement.
So you
and,
find the
and
need to keep creating these positions to manage everything?
That's the challenge of scale, is to figure out a way to delegate with people who can do it even better, and then keep them motivated and keep them inspired. And one of the things we've been doing as a company from the beginning was I created this company offsite where we went somewhere as a company, and I didn't want to call it a retreat because that was going the wrong direction. So we called it base camp, because I always love the metaphor of rock climbing and mountaineering and stuff, where you're looking at the peaks that you want to climb and accomplish, and you do it from a place of safety, and then you review with the team. All right, tomorrow for us to get on top of that mountain, this is what we need to do as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to cut the weak links, and there's a lot of great metaphors in mountaineering. And so I've been doing this offsite for 10 years. We're only 10 years old, and we go to a cool place. And 2 years ago we went to Puerto Rico after the hurricane and helped. And this year, we're in New Orleans, and we did some, give back, which is also part of our company DNA. But the idea is, let's get everyone on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
Let's inspire everyone so they really know who we are. What we're trying to create in one place. How can we scale it? And so, get everyone to drink the Kool-Aid. And so that for me is one of the that I know. I wake up and realize, all right, how do I get everyone to drink more Kool-Aid today? Like, how do they get inside my head? And how do I do a good job of communicating what I want to see everyone think about? And as we keep adding more people and more places, it's more challenging. But that's a challenge in itself that I relish.
Right on. So you said something, HR and Me Too. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, it's there's a never been with social media and documentation, never been a more challenging time in society, I think, from an HR perspective.
What's HR?
Human resources. So the whole, all these people, mostly bad, a lot of them in the hospitality world and in sports and public figures who do something wrong, from just an interpersonal. Forget legal, but just interpersonal. It's not right for me to grope. It's not right for me to pressure or use my power to get something. And then there's a fine line, I think, between flirtation, between certainly a staff member, although look at many of my staff have fallen in love and getting married. But in some worlds that's hard. So drawing those lines has gotten blurrier.
It's gotten more complicated.
And
then with more of these developing all over the country, then there's more
opportunities for it. And then the bigger we become, people think therefore we have deeper pockets. So then the deeper pockets
we do. Also,
not really. I mean, look at things are certainly better, but people just feel like there's more ambulance chasing opportunities in a HR, in a Me Too world that HR has to deal with, and so we're spending a lot of money, having to be properly covered, make sure that every employee knows what's right and wrong, and do you
have to do classes?
We do,
stuff?
Yeah, we do classes.
Interesting.
Yeah,
but I want to talk about the book because
Okay.
we just kind of cruised over that a little bit. What motivated you to write the book? I mean, you wanted your mission statement out there. Did you did you get into a process of waking up at 4:44 a.m. every day and start writing, or did you do the artist's way? What did you do? How did you become a writer? Did you ghost write it? Did Shlomo write it?
See, here's Shlomo again.
Here's Shlomo again.
Okay, well, while I'm doing this, sure, why not?
Hi.
I'm going to be sketched. You've been sketched by her, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Oh, is she...
Yeah.
Did she do the recent Leon Russell?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love your sketches.
Yeah, she's really great.
We have an artist in the building.
Yeah. So
you're great. I was at the Leon Russell. Remember?
That was pretty phenomenal.
Thank you. I was great, wasn't I?
You won the whole mix.
No, that was a great show overall. I was just part of the greatness. Anyway.
So, actually, what made me really start to think about writing something was I had read Just Kids, Patti Smith, and I saw Patti backstage at Carnegie at one of our tribute concerts.
Yeah.
And
Which one?
Oh God, she's done about 4 or 5, so I'm
So
a little blurry. Yeah,
Usually I get called in
She
when
did the
somebody
most
cancels.
recent one.
I know, but I can't. It's like I can't tell you all the tributes you've done because
Yeah,
my brain.
I probably couldn't either. So,
Yeah, so my brain just doesn't have that
So
anymore.
anyway, Patty.
So Patty's backstage, and I actually bring the book in because I'm such a fan, and I like say, Patty, would you sign this over to me? You know, and she
Because
did.
also the resale value goes way up. Then I'm just kidding.
Listen, actually,
It's
unfortunately,
back to the broken cookie thing with this guy.
That was one of the things my son Zach sold it by accident.
Yeah.
I started talking to her, and I'm like, oh my God, like, how do you remember all these details? Like, so many great little nuancy, beautiful memories. And she goes, well, I've kept a diary. I keep a diary every day. And, and I'm like, oh my God, what a schmuck I am for not writing things down, because I can't remember 50% of the things that happened at the Knitting Factory.
Because of the last podcast we did, which was with Shelley Wright, and who wrote a great memoir herself, and then was her mentor's Mary Carr. Is that? Let me see. Let me make sure I get that.
She wrote
name
The
right.
Art of Memoir.
The Art of Memoir.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Which, when I go to my books, it's probably going to come right up. See?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mary Carr, you're right.
Yeah, Mary Carr. And in this, I just listened to the chapter where it talks about memory and how, like, people don't really remember everything, and it's like and memory is very weak in human beings anyway. So it's like,
and I think it's even
always
weaker
a
with
bit-
me.
Yeah, maybe, but it's always a bit of a thing like that, like where you have to kind of say, to the best of my recollection.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So I wanted to start recalling some of that stuff, and then I
like your journey,
like
from
the journey
Knitting
and the
Factory.
lessons, and like
Yeah.
and I was again analyzing what my role in this ecosystem, and realizing that I've observed some very interesting stuff when started in this thing as a record guy wanting to put out vinyl, and then within short time it went to CD, and then it quickly turned into digital music, and then it all went away, and it's all about live. And so like I've, in a very short time, relatively speaking, been on a pretty interesting path from a music producing kind of guy. And so I thought, and then I've just made all these mistakes. I'm like, there's something there. And so then when Patty said that, I was like, God, I got to tell the Lou story. I got to tell this story. I got to tell that story, and then somehow craft it into a book. So then that was on my mind. I mentioned it to my PR person, who then said, hey, that guy, Paul Keegan, who had interviewed you for Inc. magazine, he's ghost written a few books. You should talk to him. Mm-hmm. So I talked to him, and he's like, I'd be honored to do it. So then we started this back and forth question thing, and we started thinking about what would be the arc and the stories and the lessons, and came up with like 8 critical periods and chapters where I was learning stuff, and tried to articulate those the best I could. And he did a great job of pulling that out. And yeah, I got up early in the morning, tried to crank things out best I could. And some days I was very prolific, and in other days, he really had to, do the job as an interviewer. But I think he did a great job of capturing my voice on the things that were coming out as gobbledygook from me, and he made it sound reasonably intelligent, I think.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So inspired by Patty in a way.
Yeah.
What was the Lou story that you wanted to tell?
There's a bunch of them in there. I mean, Lou, I don't know if I finished telling when Hal brought Lou to Leonard Street, and we walked into a construction site when I was building, and Lou just kept wanting me to focus on the stage, make sure the stage is good, and, quality. I don't want a hollow stage, and when he was saying I don't want, and he had never played at the Old Knit, I was like, so you want to play here? And he's like, I don't know, but, you looks good. And that, there was something in it just, I showed him a tremendous amount of respect, and it was cool to bring him in to a sawdusty place. It made it feel like he was, I think he felt part of something that was going to start up.
Right.
And so I've been trying to bring artists into all our new locations during the construction time as much as possible. And then I'm trying to do my own little webcasty thing called Under Construction, which is kind of about that, because and then during the Gulf Wars, they were starting to embed journalists and going to check out the war zone. Right, that was the first time I ever heard of an embedded journalist. Well, I think there is something about embedding and touching and feeling the reality, which can help. And so that was one of the things that Lou was really, he kept telling me I got to think about this and got to think about that.
What else?
Well, the dressing room.
The hollow stage thing, I've never even heard of that. I've been performing for 30 years. What's a hollow stage?
It's just when instead
I get it when it's hollow, but
then
who thinks like that?
It can affect the sound, right? And then all of a sudden,
he's so sonically centric.
He was so sonically
even
obsessed.
To the guitar cables
Yeah.
and shit like that.
Yeah.
I just don't have that.
He was really into Meyer sound. He was happy we had a Meyer sound system. We connected a lot on wine, and he was always interested in the learning on the wine. So we had some good wine sessions. The one I'll never forget was my wife was pregnant with the twins, and Lori invited us to their apartment. So it was Sarah and I going to have dinner with Lou and Lori, and I'm like, oh my God, this is wild. I'm gonna have dinner with Lou and Lori, in their apartment, and they had just gotten their new apartment, and Lori was still freaked out about the radiant floor heating that she never had, and so we walk in, just take off your shoes, and we're like, all right, sounds very Asian, Japanese styled, and she's like, no, but feel the floor. The floor feels great, So anyways, we had connected on this. I tried to do it in the Lori voice.
It was pretty good. It wasn't bad.
I love Lori. So she Lou and I had to sing around this one wine. It was the 2004 Willamette Valley Domaine Joanne Pinot Noir, and it was this wine that for some reason this great photographer had turned Lou on, and then I got turned on to it, and it was really good wine, and it was romantic because I remembered the wine and brought to this dinner a Magnum, so a double-sized bottle of this Domaine Drouhin, and I found the vintage 2004.
Right.
And so for a couple wine guys, it was a romantic thing,
right.
And I when we came in after I felt the floor with Lori, right, I went up to Lou's upstairs studio and I gave him the bottle, and he breaks into a big smile and pulls out from behind an amplifier a Magnum of the same 2004 Domaine Joanne. He had the same romantic thing he wanted to share with me, so we had two Magnums of the same wine. So we now open one, and this is where the story's going on. So we had a lot of wine to consume for dinner. My wife is
pregnant.
Just became pregnant, so she wasn't showing, and we weren't saying anything yet.
Right.
So she didn't want to drink any wine, of course, that night. So we had a deal. she's like, I know how important this dinner is for you, and I know you have that Lou connection, with around wine. So
Right.
I know there's gonna be a lot of wine consumed tonight, but
Yeah.
I can't drink. And I'm like, I know. She's like, well, but I don't want to tell anyone, so we're gonna fake it. You drink, and as soon as no one's looking, we'll switch glasses. So I'm now drinking. I'm drinking a lot.
duty. So you're getting
Pulling a
fucked
fast
up.
one on Lou.
So I'm getting pretty sloshed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now we're sitting there, and
Wine is dangerous
Ugh.
too. I mean,
and you got to also understand. So we were friends, but I'd never yet said to Lou Reed, because I'm just a dude from Wisconsin, but
Yeah.
I'd never said to him like, "Oh my God, what was it like being in the Velvet Underground and
Yeah.
like hanging out with Andy Warhol and like, oh my
Right.
God, like tell me what it was like, man."
Yeah.
Like, wow, being at the factory and like
yeah.
so. And I was always trying to be cool.
I was always trying to be cool around
I was
him
trying to be
too.
cool. I was trying to be like.
I got a funny story where I let it go. Go ahead.
So that's
Keep-
what happened.
Yeah.
So
And then you
I couldn't I
couldn't
I
hold it
lost
back.
I lost because I
You
was
were
so
drunk.
drunk.
Yeah.
And I finally was like, I just
That was the last time Michael had dinner with Lou Reed.
No,
he
well, I doubt
appreciated it. He was pretty
Yeah.
drunk too.
Yeah. Okay.
It
Go
was
ahead.
all good. No, that was it.
Yeah.
Like that
What
was.
did you say?
I don't remember most of it, but I definitely.
it was almost blackout vibes?
Sarah was telling me you were like talking about, asking him about being on stage when
Wow.
when he was in different color hair, and you were asking him about the men that he had, been.
Oh, you went
like-
there.
Oh, I went everywhere.
Wow.
Apparently.
Wow, my story's not that involved. I just one time texted him because I was listening to the song Coney Island Baby, and which ironically is where we started this podcast at a club called Coney Island Baby. But I wrote him, that song Coney Island Baby I think is the best song anyone's ever written. And or I said, I'm sorry to fan out or something like that. And then I just kept looking at my phone to see if he was going to text me back. And he didn't text me back for a while. And then he wrote back saying, thank you. I love you no matter what, no matter how you approach me or something along those lines.
Yeah.
He was very
Very sweet.
magnanimous and sweet about it. He understood that I kind of went fanboy on him for a second,
Yeah. No, and so I went over the
You
top
went- you went
fanboy.
way.
And I think he saw it as sweet.
Yeah.
He saw it as sweet. And
I'm sure.
he was sweet to me really until he died,
He was a really sweet guy.
Yeah.
I think if you kind of got behind, behind or the
He had a
The veneer
He
or
had
the-
he had a veneer that
But,
was
but-
intimidating.
yeah, but the way I see it too is he was a living legend, and he was out on the street in New York City all the time.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
there's a lot of stories of Lou probably icing people, but it's think about it. If you're like that, and he chose to be in the world,
Exactly.
so of course so
You need to be able to do that, or else you
Yeah.
can't go out.
exactly.
Yeah.
Did it
That's
ever
awesome.
come up where you almost booked him to play here? Because in my memory, he never did.
He
play
never
here.
he never played here, and
He came to shows here though.
he
Yes,
came to
we
shows
saw
here a
Joe
bunch.
here a few
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
And the Satyrs, but did you try to book
Yeah,
him?
no, you're right. He did a few satyrs here. So he has always had this very strong talent agent, Marsha Vlasic. And she's got a veneer, but also it's part of who she is. She protects her artists.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, so Lou and I became buddies, and he would call me or send me a fax. he was a fax guy, and he after a run of shows, he sent me a note or called. I can't remember what it was, but it was a call, and he goes, "Hey, I want to do another 3 nights," and I'm like, "All right, I'll call Marsha Vlasic." And try and book the nights. And he goes, well, I got to do August, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, cool. He's like, okay, but those are the dates. So then I call Marsha and go, so Lou called me and he would like to play at the Knitting Factory August 21, 22, and 23. And she's like, you talk to Lou about dates? I'm like, he called me, and I wrote him down to help, get him the information to you, Marcia. She's like, do not ever speak to my artist again, and I was like, well,
By the way, that's like for people out there, like that's common in a way.
Yeah, it is, but
there's like the protocol thing.
I should have known a better way to bring that to her.
If Lou asked you, he asked you.
I know. I could. If in retrospect, 20 years later, I could have delivered that information to
Or you could
Marcia
have said
better.
to Lou, like, hey, you got to talk to Marcia.
Yeah. That's even wiser, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't have any of that. I was like,
Yeah.
I booked,
You're psyched.
super psyched, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, she got mad at me. I know she likes wine too, so I started sending her bottles of wine when I was going to open this place, and I gave her a walkthrough because I would not book Lou without doing it correctly through Marcia, and whatever it was when I opened here, I guess 2008. He did a couple more Beacon shows, which he loved the Beacon Theater. He really loved the Beacon Theater. I talked to him 6 times about doing doing a tribute at Carnegie, and he's like,
Oh, for Lou.
yeah, and he's like, don't you want to do it at the Beacon? And I'm like, nah, this is a Carnegie thing. He goes, I'm not interested. Please don't honor me. And I'm like,
That's so funny.
but I don't know.
Why did he, like, that's so wild that he didn't want to be honored.
But sadly, we never did, real shows here. That's okay.
Has there been a Lou tribute that you've done at Carnegie?
No. So there has been
Let's do one.
There's been a couple of Lou tributes that Hal, has done, and again, Hal's the right person to really do it. I wouldn't. Again, I respect Hal way
That's
too
true.
much, and
Yeah.
so we wanted to
Maybe you
do.
could do one together.
Yeah, we could. And we're doing a little we're doing this 10-year series of people who were here, performed, and officially Lou did perform at the Seder a couple times. But so we're doing something around Lou this Wednesday, actually.
Wow.
I guess too late again for the podcast. It's a memory. So we're doing 10 people who passed during the 10 years that we were here.
Played the Leon Russell.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
You were part of the Leon.
Yeah.
And we got
Who's playing
it's amazing.
the Lou one?
I don't know. Shlomo would know.
Yeah. Where's Shlomo when you need him?
I think Lori is going to be here.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I want to come.
You should.
Yeah.
I think it's Wednesday.
I'm going to come.
You're always welcome.
So when is the new location opening up, technically? On paper.
On paper, we should be opening Pier 57 in January. Could be in February. Might go as late as March, but I think we should be able to hit the end of January.
And when's the book out?
Book comes out October 4th, and we're doing all kinds of pre-sale things because one thing I didn't know about selling books is it's really hard.
Yeah.
And so when will this podcast come out?
August, beginning of August.
So
Yeah,
what?
soon.
So what I'm doing
do
here,
the
In 2
promo.
I'll do a promo.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Anybody?
Because we got to wrap it up.
Okay, here we go.
We've been going for a while, haven't we? What do you think?
Almost 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, that's long.
That's good. So here's my gift to all of your. Maybe it's not a gift, and it's more of a sell.
It
But
certainly is a gift. Let's
but
hear it.
anybody who pre-buys the book
Uh-huh.
and sends me their Amazon receipt
Gets broken cookies.
will get some broken cookies and a hard hat tour and a bunch of wine of the new Pier 57 before we open. So I'll take you
where
in
can
there.
they pre-order it?
You pre-order it on Amazon, and then you send in the receipt to Michael's book at citywinery.com, and I'll give you a hard hat tour. If you
That's
buy
great.
10 of them, I'll buy you lunch.
Wow.
Buy 100 of them, and I'll clean your kitchen.
Who's the publisher?
Be careful, because this is on the record with the
Well,
kitchen.
That's all right. I'll clean the kitchen.
Yeah, for real.
For 100 books, man. It's hard to sell books. Post Hill Publishing is the publisher, and we're doing the whole thing. The Barnes and Noble and Hudson News, and I'm going to be all over the place in October. It's kind of fun.
Are you going to do a book tour?
Yeah, but there's not that much. I'm going to go to the city wineries and some other stuff. It's very odd for me, who's always promoted talent, to be on the other side for a change and even talk about myself in the third person. Like, I got a book coming out. Like, it's just weird to say.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun, but I
Yeah.
haven't fully gotten comfortable with the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, you never will.
Yeah, maybe.
It
We'll
never
see.
it never gets comfortable.
And I just one last question. As far as you're a huge music fan, and you've had a lot of your idols in here, probably at the Knitting Factory. What was one of the highlights for you at stage here at City Winery?
Besides having Joseph, right?
Yes.
Right. I'm one of the. I've played here almost as much as anybody.
Yeah, you've been here a lot.
Many,
it's great.
many times.
You have a great fan base too,
Yeah.
right? They've loved seeing you here.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna keep going. It's gonna
Yeah,
keep
for
going.
sure.
But
oh no, my new album's hot, coming out October 10th.
is it? Oh,
Yeah.
let's bundle.
Come
You,
back
you should
world.
play his book tour.
Yeah.
So it's highlights, and then what's like the biggest miss that that almost happened?
Well, I certainly screwed up on Fish, right?
Right.
But then, what's funny is I became friendly with the band, and Mike Gordon did one of the first kind of cool social media-driven shows here. So we became buddies, and so the first few months we opened, Mike Gordon had a birthday party here.
Oh.
And then the band came, and some members of the Dead showed up.
Mike
and
Gordon is
Mike
he's
Gordon
in
is the
Fish?
bass player in Fish.
Okay.
And I said to him when I booked the party, he goes, it's gonna be like 50 people, and we're gonna keep it mellow. And I'm like, cool. And I was like, do you want us to have backline on the stage in case you guys want to just jam as friends and all that? And he goes, no backline for sure. We're not gonna play. And then different people started coming, and around 7 o'clock I said to Mike Gordon, so what do you think? Should we just get like a bass rig and a guitar amp and and it's getting 7 o'clock. Mark Coletti's going home, and SIR is going to close really soon. And he's like, no, for sure, no backline, please. We don't want this to, no playing live tonight. It's just a birthday party. Yeah. At about 9 o'clock, Bill Kreutzmann from the Dead shows up, and he's in a good mood, and there's a few other musicians, and then a couple bass guitars got given as a gift. And so Mike Gordon looks at me and goes, hey, is there any way you could get like an amp and a drum rig and maybe a guitar amp? So I'm like, oh God. So
AKA a backline.
So I get all this backline, which he said no way, and we got it here about 10 o'clock, and then I said to him, do you want? Are you going to play? And he goes, yeah, I think we're going to play. I go, do you want some more people to come in? And he's like, sure. And he goes, I said, so can I send out a little tweet kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
And this was 10 years ago, so I wasn't very prolific in that world, so I needed help. And he said, sure. So I sent a note to Pete Shapiro, at Brooklyn Bowl. He was just had opened, and my brother, who's a real Deadhead, and members of the Dead and Fish are jumping on stage. And within 30 minutes, this place was packed to the rafters, like 500 people, experiencing this crazy birthday party. That was cool. That showed the power of social media for sure, because that happened fast. But for the number one musical highlight, was Prince.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
How did that happen?
I was there.
Oh my God, was that just It was just like,
It's unbelievable.
yeah.
People still talk about that as legendary.
It was-
like, that
well,
they walked out and it was
I
daylight.
came Saturday night and waited all night. He didn't play.
Right.
Sunday, then it was about 3
3 o'clock
in the
he went
morning.
on,
He went on. The place was packed. But what was weird, and he played like a Madison Square Garden level concert. He had like the all girl band, and then he had a horn section. Two different
New
bands.
Power Generation.
Yeah, two different bands.
Yeah.
His own sound system. But what struck me is people were were leaving. Like it got emptier as it went, and I got kicked out of that show.
Because you took a photo.
I think you tried to help me not get kicked out, but I got kicked out anyway.
Yeah.
Like 2 hours in too. Like I took a photo, and then
he brought his own security.
and his security guy came up and said, "Give me your phone," and I'm like, "No." And then they were like, "Then you have to leave," and I'm like, "Okay," and I I took my friend with me. Like we left, but I just walked right around the side and right
And
back
it's-
into the side
Nice.
door.
Well, you knew.
Because I knew.
You knew the
and
side door.
And all of a sudden, I'm with James Jamerson getting my picture taken with him because I got kicked out. And then I walked right back into the front of the stage.
Nice.
It was like nothing had happened. And then he did like solo piano.
Oh my God. The encores, he
it
did
was
it was unbelievable. And
Like when we got kicked out, I was like, oh, well, he's been playing for 2 hours anyway.
Right, it's almost over.
It's almost over. No, it was going to go on for another hour.
6:15 he finished.
Dude,
And
it was unfucking real. By
was-
the time it was 6:15, it wasn't that packed in there either. Like it was.
People had to go to work.
People
It
had to
was
go
a
to
Monday
work.
morning.
Yeah.
Right, but the weird thing is you're walking around City Winery and Prince is going off, and it's not even rammed.
Yeah. It was unbelievable.
Well, you have to
Yeah.
also tell people it was a 9 o'clock show, and whoever wanted to see him had to wait for
Yeah.
5 hours, and he might show
Oh
up. might
yeah,
not.
yeah.
So I got two sidebars on this.
Yeah,
One
yeah,
is
no, go.
at 6:15.
I had to go in. 'cause,
No. I'm
yeah.
glad you told it, and it was as big a show as I could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
And he was one of my absolute all time favorites growing
Yeah,
up in
me
Wisconsin and
too.
Minneapolis and all that. So, but at 6:15, I went up to him on the side of the stage, and I was with one of my sons who kind of persevered and went through the whole thing with me.
Unbelievable.
And I put my arm on his shoulder just to like thank him, just a little physical contact. And by the way, he was several inches shorter than me, which was fantastic for me for a change. And he was wearing he had shoulder no shoulder what do you call it, a tank top.
You had a tank
Yeah,
top
he had a
on?
tank top.
Yeah.
My wife beat her.
And he had the softest, non-sweaty shoulders and arms. Like he had just finished 3 hours of kicking ass on stage,
He was kicking ass.
and it was like he hadn't broken a sweat. Like he had somehow, between the time I saw him come off the stage, because I was on the stage for the fourth encore, he came off, and somehow I blinked, and he baby powdered his whole body or something, because it was so soft and dry. And I was like, oh man, that was incredible. And all I could think about was, those are the nicest soft arms I've ever felt. Actually, oddly enough, Lou Reed had incredibly soft skin too. But the thing was, do you know what happened on the Wednesday before this whole thing started?
What?
So I was on a video vlog like this, and I don't do these a lot, but it was like, and
This is a podcast.
all right, so I was on a vlog. Sorry, I was on a
give a
vlog.
shit, dude.
I was on a vlog.
I don't even know the
It might have been
difference.
a
I'm
podcast.
just- I'm joking.
I'm not even sure I do
Anyway,
either.
yeah.
And they were saying, so how did you get Prince? And I said, well, we did a tribute the year before, and we thought we were getting the after party, but I've been sending him requests to play an after party at it started with the Knitting Factory. I've been sending requests to do an after party for a long time. I've been trying to get this motherfucker to play forever. And then I said it in the most, and when I came out and I said, motherfucker, I didn't think about it. I just, he's Prince. This is
Sexy
this,
Motherfucker's one of his
right,
songs.
Right. This is jazz,
Yeah.
rock and roll, right? Within 30 seconds, I get a text going, please call me,
From who?
Prince. And I'm like, oh, and then the next thing was like, what is your number? And I'm like, it's the number that you just texted me. so then the phone rings.
What is your number?
What is your number?
Oh my God.
And it was one of he had two 22-year-old assistants that were working with him on this thing. He ended up firing one by the Sunday night show, but both young assistants saying, we heard what you called Prince, and one, he doesn't swear, and that's not his name. And I'm like, what? You used a curse word, and that's not his name. I'm like, oh man, and I didn't mean it. I said it in respect and love.
We're bookending this because we're back to the power of words and people that understand the power of words.
And Prince,
And
better
Prince
than any
understood
other
the power of words. So the fact that the word,
Does he have like a network where somebody says something bad about him?
I
and
don't
they
know, but
instantly call that
so
person up?
they said, unfortunately, I know, the band's planned for 4 nights and stuff, but Prince is not going to be able to perform at
Because
City
of what-
Winery
because you just
because of
said.
what you said. That's not
Boom.
his name.
That's a fucking amazing.
and
Speaking
I was
of-
like,
excuse my language.
oh my God.
Prince.
I'm like, oh my
Rest in
God.
peace.
Oh my God. And I
And
go,
wait,
I said,
hold on. Like, what did you think at that moment? Did your heart
My-
sink to
my
your
heart-
stomach?
yeah, it was-
like you just blew it.
I screwed up again. Dorf, you screwed up again. And you tried to be
What's Dorf backwards, bro?
Yeah, you tried to be cool. You tried to like go, hey, no, I tried to get him.
yeah.
Like I tried to be cool, and I screwed up again.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even drunk. I just was, and so.
This is worse than when you went on and on with Lou and asking him about.
This
men
is
you
bad.
slept
This was
with.
the worst. Like I completely screwed up. Everyone was so psyched. Like I'm getting calls from everyone, going like, oh my God, you got Prince coming,
Yeah.
So I'm like, is there anything I could do to this 22-year-old on the phone? And she goes, well, let me, hold on. And then like a few seconds later, Prince says that you need to write 100 times, I'm sorry, your name is Prince. And if you write that down, take a photo and then text it back, we'll reconsider.
I'm sorry, your name is Prince.
I'm sorry, your name is Prince. I'm sorry, your
What
name is
the
Prince.
Fuck, dude.
I'm
this
sorry,
story is like,
your name is Prince.
I mean,
So-
dude, like, come on.
So here, this one, Shlomo.
Dude, like,
I never heard
you
this.
are
Yeah,
Prince.
yeah.
Like, really,
Yeah,
you care
yeah,
that,
yeah.
like,
So
it's like
it's-
unbelievable.
cares.
Shlomo,
cares.
Shlomo has video on his phone of me writing this. So I'm like writing it on a yellow pad. I'm writing as fast as I
I
can.
bet you he counted.
I'll
that
tell
there
you
was
what.
100.
I know when we do graffiti upstairs, I'm gonna write, "I'm sorry, your
Your
name is Prince." At
Yes.
least once.
So in homage. I mean, look at he. So I don't know. So I did it. I took the photo.
How long did it take you to do it?
Uh,
And how long did it take you to decide to do it? Instantly, you're gonna.
I
do
would
it.
say-
or did
I
your
would s-
pride kick in at all, or no?
Just a tiny bit.
A
but
tiny
Just a
bit?
tiny bit. But I was like,
Because
no.
I'm like me, I'm taking that deal. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I will do that.
Yeah.
Like, but your pride kicked in.
No, for a 13th of a second. Like,
Okay,
but I did
barely.
think.
Like,
oh, come
fuck
on.
this. Yeah.
Really? Really?
But this is like great
But-
because this is like the genius
That's
artist.
Prince level stuff.
Well, like the people who are genius artists do have this like childlike thing that remains intact that enables them to be like creatively genius, but also has that flip side to where like they might make you write, "I'm sorry, my name is Prince" 100 times.
Yeah.
Just like
it's
Bart
just
Simpson on the.
it was
on the
unbelievable.
blackboard.
So
I don't know that.
obviously
Oh, yeah.
he did it, and I'm so glad I bent over and wrote that, and I would do that, for artists all day long.
So you did that, and then you texted it, and then what happened?
Then she came about an hour later to pick it up.
Oh, she wanted the hard copy?
Yeah, she.
Like what? You're faking the picture of it somehow?
I don't know, but I don't. No, she just wanted to verify it. I don't know. But she came
The
to
text
pick it up.
picture's not verification enough at that point. Like I'm thinking, like
They-
to like manipulate a text picture of that would be harder than just doing it. It's like,
Dude, it's
But-
Prince. You don't
Well,
ask.
I know,
Prince,
I know.
He
You
had
don't
two.
ask.
He had two 22-year-old assistants,
Yeah.
and he sent one of them out to collect this thing to make sure it was. And then I actually, the first few minutes that I got to chat with him, which was an honor, I asked him about his young assistants, and he said something that I'll never forget. He said, he might have said, called me Michael. I don't remember if he ended up knowing my name, but he was like, I need to be surrounded by youth. I need youth. It gives me life.
But just real quick, I remember like at 3 a.m. thinking like, man, after spending 2 nights waiting for Prince, thinking he wasn't gonna come on, and you kind of get mad, and you're just like, ah, man, fuck Prince. But the minute he walks on stage, he charms all that right out of you because the dude was funny. That was the thing I wasn't expecting. Like I wasn't expecting him to be so likable and funny like that, Anyway,
He was amazing.
Yeah.
He truly was one of the
That was
great
the full Afro Prince version, right?
Yeah.
Well,
He had a big afro. He had a specter, sphere, whatever you call
Yeah.
that cane, and he truly
He was
was.
amazing.
He was a magic magic man.
Well, that's a good place to
Yeah.
end this.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Michael.
Michael.
Wow.
Really appreciate it. Thanks, Ehud.
My pleasure.
Wow, we jammed.
Killed
We had a lot of. That was fun.
That was fun.
Hi, this is Joseph Arthur. Thanks for checking out Come to Where I'm From. Please support us on Patreon, patreon.com/come to where I'm from. We are an independent podcast, and any contributions you can make are greatly appreciated.